Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. Thank you so much for joining the Spiritist Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I am delighted to host this talk today by Luiz Lima, who will be talking about the three revelation. Let's give Luiz Lima a very warm welcome. Hello, Luiz. And before he starts his presentation, please allow me to introduce him if you are not acquainted to him. Luis Lima has begun his journey in Spiritism since 1990. Whew, a long time, right, Luis?
Yes.
As, as a serious researcher on the scientific aspects of Spiritism, I believe I have a sense he's going to touch upon this today. But moving on, Louise has been facilitating the studies of how to bridge science and Spiritism in both languages. Portuguese, his native tongue, and English. Mr. Lima is a renowned lecturer in the Spiritist movement, and he participates in local and national seminars and events all year round. Luis Lima holds a degree in electronic engineering and he works in the computer network industry. Please take a moment and use this opportunity to send your questions during the presentation using the chat window. Luis Lima has reserved time to address your comments, feedback, questions once he concludes his presentation.
Hi, Marcia.
Guy,
I thank you so much for hosting today. And
yes.
I'm so glad to be here talking about this, the three revelations, which is something that really fascinates me. I've been interested in this topic for a very long time, studying a lot of it. So yeah, let's talk about it. Let's go to it. We're going to use some slides here to facilitate our talk. So the first thing that we need to, before we even get to it, the first thing we need to agree on is the word revelation. What is exactly revelation? Because it makes a difference for what we're going to say here. The word has to be understood correctly. Revelation is related somehow to the idea of bringing to light something that is unknown, which is different from discovery. Discovery is, it has a sequence of events that you get to know one thing based on something that was previously found or previously understood. So discovery has to do with layers of knowledge. A revelation does not come from something you knew before. You simply didn't know. It is brought in uh, as something completely new. It opens a new idea altogether. That's the whole idea behind the concept of revelation. So when we talk about spiritual revelations or anything in that sense, there are 3 points in history where we have these revelations. The first point takes place with Moses and what it got to be known as the Old Testament. And Moses brings us what is the first revelation. Now, how is this coming about? Moses goes up the mountain and he brings back the tablets with the 10 commandments. These are divine laws. We call them divine laws. So Moses brings this down, and the the population, the people, they have a very hard time accepting what's written on the tablets. Just think about this. Try to go back in time and place yourself, 4,000 years ago or so. One of the commandments is you cannot kill. You're not allowed to kill. And then when Moses presents, you cannot kill, for these people at the time, it's like, how come? I don't get the idea because we kill people, we kill each other all the time. You start talking to somebody, it gets in a more heated argument. The easiest thing to do is to grab the sword and, wipe it through somebody's body, and then you go on. And that's what life was in those days. So now Moses comes down and say, you can kill. So it is very, very, very difficult for the population to swallow that idea. So what Moses has to do, and this is, he takes action, what he has to do is create what we call disciplinary laws that are going to sustain those 10 commandments. And he does that. He creates 613 laws that will sustain those 10 commandments. So we end up with 623, which later on became known as the Mosaic Law, the Law of Moses. Now, one thing has to be understood here. When he brings these laws, he's not talking to people about it. Let's get together, let's discuss these 10 commandments and see what we make out of it. No, he has to be firm, very firm, because the population wasn't taking it well. So he comes in as with this tone of an imposition, using a more, I would say, modern word. He comes in as this, quotes please, dictator. Because if he didn't do that, the population would never, ever pay attention to those 10 laws. So he comes in as this dictator. So it will take time for the people to, get the idea of a new law. And some of us have not got the idea whatsoever still. So he presents this to the people in the 613 laws, and it goes on and on and on. Now, what is a disciplinary law that we mentioned? For example, let's take one of the commandments. You cannot kill. You shall not kill. Well, a disciplinary law would be something like this. You shall not kill, but if you kill, you go to jail, for example. You see, the part, if you kill, you go to jail, is not a divine law. It's a disciplinary law. It's a social law that will, whose purpose is to sustain the divine law. So those disciplinary laws help the whole thing to take place. So the 10 commandments can be sustained. So Moses comes in, presents everything. With time, some of the people start to abide to the law, to the new law, the 10 commandments, and some don't. Until the time where a second revelation comes. And that comes through the life of Jesus, with himself, walking through, the people in Galilee and other places, and bringing this revelation, bringing a different tone. Now, he was accused by the Pharisees that he was breaking the law. He was trying to change the law. You see, he was not changing any of the 10 commandments, but he had to make adjustments to some of the 613, because those were disciplinary laws. When the society evolves, the laws will have to change and adapt. Otherwise, you don't let the society grow. If you keep the same laws, if we had the same laws that we had 3,000-4,000 years ago still in place today, society wouldn't be what it is today. So Jesus came to make adjustments to the disciplinary laws, not to the divine laws. So he was falsely or wrongly accused of trying to change the law. No, not really. However, Jesus does not come as this dictator as Moses had to be. He comes in as a counselor. He will say things like, for example, the case of the adulterous woman. He will not judge her. He will say, I'm going to give an advice. If I were you, I would not do this again. This is an advice. It's not an imposition. He's not, doing anything more aggressive than simply giving advice. So he comes as this big counselor, this friendly counselor that will not change the original 10 commandments. He will bring new life, new interpretation to the law as a revelation, because you could not, it's not a discovery that you studied the first revelation and then you automatically concluded and got to the second. No, it's not a discovery, it's a revelation. So it comes in through his life and his teachings. And then we have another point in time where we got another revelation called the third revelation, and that comes with Spiritism. In 1857, Allan Kardec publishes the first book of the codification, the Spirit's book, and this book is going to start, provides new revelation. Now, Allan Kardec does not come, or Allan Kardec on behalf of Spiritism, because he wasn't him, the man. He comes in as the person who brought in a set of information coming from the highly evolved spirits. So on behalf of Spiritism, Allan Kardec brings the third revelation, but he's not really a counselor and he's not really a dictator. It's another layer. Spiritism comes as an explanation to all of this. Just think about this. Let's go back to the example that we had. You shall not kill. So you're not allowed to kill. That's Moses. And if somebody tells you 4,000 years ago, don't kill, you don't pick up. You don't understand that. That's outside your radar. It's not possible. When Jesus comes and says, listen, if I were you, I wouldn't kill. To say the least, you would say, why? Now I'm interested in knowing why. You see, it's not an imposition anymore. It's a counseling. Now, Spiritism comes to explain. When you know why you can or cannot, you should or you should not do something, but you have an explanation, it's a lot more likely that you're going to follow it and it's going to make sense to you. So don't kill. I wouldn't kill if I were you. And then the explanation, because you're going to have to offset the wrongdoing and you're going to have some hard time ahead of you in a future lifetime, maybe on the same lifetime. So when you receive explanation, it changes the way we relate to the law. So what we see here is three layers. One layer that comes in as an imposition, another layer as a counseling, and another layer explaining everything that was done previously and why. It answers to the whys and hows. Now, these laws are, or these revelations, they are all bound together. And how does it happen? It's interesting to look at history to see the connection between these things. They are not simply, they fell from the sky. No, there's a tremendous work, a background work by the highly evolved spirits to make this thing happen. So let's take a peek of our history quickly. The Roman Empire was getting bigger and bigger. And how did the Roman Empire got bigger and larger? By acquiring more land. So by the year 63 before Jesus, the Roman Empire had acquired 2 pieces of land. More than 2, but 2 in special make sense to us here. The Greeks, or Greece, and Judea, or the land of the Hebrews. So, and this happens by the year 63 before Christ. Now, when they conquer those lands, they don't change the people, at least not in the first moment. So the Greeks are now under the Roman control, but they bring with them their culture. And their culture is a culture based on philosophy. The great philosophers, they all come from ancient Greece. And what is philosophy? Philosophy, it's the art of seeking knowledge, especially through questions and answers. You have to find something, you have to ask. Then you ask and then you get an answer. On top of the answer, you make a second question. Then you got another answer. On top of the second answer, you got a third question. And that's how it goes until you get completely knowledge upon whatever subject you're trying to get information on. So this is philosophy. So the Greeks come into this control, this Roman control, and they bring their philosophy. The Hebrews bring something different. Their culture was not based on philosophy, not at all. Their culture was based on theology. What is theology? It's the idea that God is responsible for everything, the only responsible for everything, and God gives orders, and on a snap of fingers, God makes things happen. So God snapped the fingers and he reigns, and he snapped the fingers and this happens. That's theology. It's the idea that God is under full control and we don't really can do much more than follow that. So these two elements, philosophy and theology, are now, under, in a way, under the Roman control. By the year 63, Rome controls both, but it doesn't kill them. Rome did not kill the Greek philosophy and did not kill the Hebrew theology, so they survived the control. However, Roman control adds a third a third element here, which is paganism. So now we have a huge piece of land, the Roman Empire, in which you have three elements, all together, all mixed together. And this goes on until when Jesus comes along. Around the year 30, Jesus starts, his teachings and spreading his message. And right after, or a little bit after Jesus, what happens is, out of those three elements, philosophy, paganism, and theology, only one survives, which is theology. With time, 250, 300 years, paganism dies. And in a very short time, philosophy dies. Maybe 30 years, 40 years, philosophy dies. So what survives out of this is theology. And again, what is theology? The idea that God is in full control and everything happens on a snap of fingers at God's will. And then we are going to stay on theology for 1600 years, a very, very, very long time. Within this time, we are under a tremendous pressure from the church that came to be, imposing their dogmas, which were created by the church themselves. You cannot ask it, what is dogma, right? It's something that is imposed upon us. We cannot argue, we cannot discuss, we cannot ask questions. So that's how we were for 1600 years. We could not ask anything. But then things start to change in the late 1600s, early 1700s, when science became an object of more interest with Isaac Newton and Dalton. And these guys were looking at the church and saying, how come? These are technical minds. They have a critical thinking. So they look at the theology at the time and they kind of, this is not right. So with the scientific movement, the idea of this theology is bombarded with questions that these people, these scientists, had to the church, and the church didn't have an answer for them because it was all dogma. There were no explanation. They couldn't ask. You can't argue on that. And then a little after that, a group of philosophers in France starts to talk to the people, to the population. They go to the population and say, listen, we got brains. What is the brain for? It's for us to think, to have critical thinking. How come we are under this theological world? We cannot ask anything for such a long time. That's absurd. We have the right to ask. We should ask. That's philosophy. They were philosophers in a great number, by the way. And they start this movement that came to be known as the Age of Enlightenment. And the Age of Enlightenment starts to spread throughout the populations. It started in France, but the idea that no, we cannot take these don't ask as an answer to everything that we ask the church. We are supposed to think. We are supposed to ask. So what happens is, with the Age of Enlightenment, philosophy is brought back into the picture. So now, around the 1750s or so, when the Age of Enlightenment really started to dominate France and spread out to the rest of Europe, then the idea of staying under this theological world only starts to, it starts to be bombarded. So philosophy comes into place. So after the Age of Enlightenment, we had theology that stays, it doesn't die, but we have another layer now, which is philosophy. So we get out of the Age of Enlightenment with philosophy back in place, asking and getting answers. And then we go shortly after this, we go into the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is going to change the way we ask questions, change the method of analyzing, change the method of doing things. So after the Industrial Revolution, we still have the philosophy because it didn't kill it. We still have theology. Industrial Revolution didn't kill it, but it adds a third element. It adds another layer, which is the scientific method of doing things. This leg here that I'm calling science. So now we get out of the Industrial Revolution with three legs, or three layers: philosophy, science, and theology. Theology meaning the way we relate to God and everything, and obey God, which we can call religion in that sense. So we get out of the Industrial Revolution with religion, science, and philosophy well established. Well, that's very interesting, especially for us Spiritists, because all of this, these three elements, is what's going to be used as a base for the arrival of Spiritism. So, philosophy. What is our book of philosophy in Spiritism? Our book of philosophy is the Spirit's book. No wonder why the book, Allan Kardec could have written this as a regular text, but no, he on purpose did it questions and answers, because that's what philosophy is. You question something, you got an answer. Question number one, here's the answer. Question number two, here's the answer, and so and so and so. On the very first page of the Spirit's book, any translation, any language, you're going to see philosophical, they use a word, philosophy. It's a philosophy. Now, where does the information contained in the Spirit's book coming from? It comes from the spirit world. That's revelation, right there. It was not something that we were able to conclude based on prior knowledge or prior observations. We went to the lab and we did this test. No, nothing like this. It comes from the spirit world. What is the Spiritism's science book? It's the medium's book. What is this science? It's the method. Remember, methodology. The medium's book uses, or Allan Kardec, when preparing the medium's book and investigate the phenomena and everything else, he uses the same scientific method that was used in the Industrial Revolution and even before that by the early scientists from Newton on and on. So he uses the same method to make sure things were clear, had a method, and it was done right. And what is our book of religion, the way we relate to God and the moral standards? It's the gospel according to Spiritism. And where does that information come from? It comes from the moral standards brought in by Jesus. What he was trying to convey, the message he was trying to convey, is what is in this book, the gospel according to Spiritism, with all the explanations and all the, in detail, at length. So this book, the gospel according to Spiritism, brings all the moral that Jesus was passing on to us. So when we look at all of this as an overview, it wouldn't make sense. It would not make sense for Spiritism to come in or to be born, per se, before the Industrial Revolution. It wouldn't make sense to Spiritism to be born before Jesus. And it wouldn't make sense for Spiritism to be born before Moses. And a lot of times we see questions, especially doing lectures, for so many years, a lot of people will ask, why did it take so long for Spiritism to be, to come in as a revelation? Well, here's the answer. There's a process. And all of this is being coordinated by the highly evolved spirits in the spirit world. So this links all of the revelations. The three revelations come on board just like that. Now, it would be interesting if we could go back to those three spirits that brought the revelations: Moses, Jesus, and Kardec on behalf of Spiritism. If we could ask them questions about the work they did and the laws that they revealed to us, it would be very interesting. Can you imagine you put in a room 3 chairs and, here's Moses, here's Jesus, here's Kardec, and you're going to start interviewing them. It would be very nice. Well, we cannot do it physically, but we can do a simulation. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to conduct an interview with those 3 and see what they answer. So we're going to have one question and all 3 answer. Question number 2, all 3 are going to answer, and so and so. Let's see where we get, because I promise you, it's going to get interesting. So let's go through this simulated interview. First question. It's about the laws that these guys are bringing, right? So whom are these laws for? So Moses has to answer, Jesus has to answer, Kardec on behalf of Spiritism has to answer. Whom are these laws for? Moses. Well, those are for the Hebrews. It's an easy answer for him. Those laws are for the Hebrews. Jesus has a different answer. Those laws are for all people. And Spiritism has a different answer. This is for the entire creation. So when you look at this, you see the question is exactly the same. Well, when you look at the answer, you clearly see 3 layers and 3 very distinct layers, because the answers are not, very close to each other. No, they are not. There's a leap between uh, the first to the second revelation, and from the second to the third. Let's do a few more questions and see what they answer, so we can get the idea of the difference between them. So question number 2, here we go. How long are these laws valid for? Interesting question, right? So Moses, well, for as long as we live. Okay. Jesus, forever. Look at this. This is a subtle difference. For as long as we live. When you die, the law is no longer valid. Forever means when you die, it doesn't matter because the law is still valid. And Spiritism. So the question is, how long are these laws valid for? Spiritism. They are eternal. So not only they are valid forever, on and on and on, but they have been valid since the beginning. So you see the expanded answer that Spiritism has, at least in those first 2 questions here. It starts to give us this open-minded. It's a little more than what we thought before. So let's go to another question. Question number 3. What do these laws entail? Another interesting question. Moses, obedience to God. Okay, that's what it was at the time. What do these laws entail? Jesus, counseling. Spiritism, liberation and empowerment. Why liberation? Because once you understand the law, you got to understand the law. If you don't understand it, it doesn't make sense to you, you're not going to pay attention to it. Once you understand these laws, even before you practice, once you understand these laws, it gives you a different perspective in terms of your relation to God. You're not supposed to think that you will be manipulated by God all the time. No, that's liberation and empowerment. We have free will, and that's clear in Spiritism. We can and we should do things, not just sit and wait. So it's different. Question number 4. What ideas do these laws express? Moses, might and fear. Might and fear. What ideas do these laws express? Jesus, completely different. Faith and love, completely different than might and fear. It's almost like 180 degrees. So, Jesus, faith and love. Spiritism, faith and love, yes. However, rational faith and unconditional love. You see the expansion of the answer? It's not just faith, no. Rational faith. There's got to be something rational. Philosophy means rationality. Spiritism is based on seeking a philosophy of life. So rational faith and unconditional love is not just love when it's convenient. No, it's all the time. So when you look at this particular answer and those 3 layers, especially coming, if you compare Moses and Spiritism's answers, it's completely different. So it opens up our minds and our hearts too. The heart follows it because it's unconditional love. Question number 5. What attitude should humans have had when given these laws? So the question is, when we receive these laws from you, What should we have done? How should we have received these laws that were given to us? Moses, submission and obedience. Okay. Jesus, action. So we received these laws. Instead of being following submission and obedience, we should take action, because these laws, they show us that life can be different, life can be better. He is a counselor. Jesus is a counselor. And now the most interesting thing, what is the attitude that we should have had according to Spiritism? Action, yes, but with responsibility. And why is that? Spiritism is about explanation. We talked about this in the beginning. Because action, I can take any action. I can do good things and I can do bad things. I can do evil things. Those are actions. However, I'm responsible for what I do. Whatever I do that's not in line with the divine law, I'm going to have to, one day or another, later on in this life or an upcoming life, I'm going to have to offset my wrongdoings. I don't like to use the word pay for it, because pay for it is more like an eye for an eye. So, and not necessarily it's an eye for an eye. For example, you kill somebody in this life, next life, you don't have to be killed. That would be an eye for an eye. So you kill somebody this life, next life you're gonna save lives. You're gonna be a doctor, a nurse. You're gonna work with small kids in daycare. It's about offsetting. It's not about an eye for an eye. That's another very clear message in Spiritism. Question number 6. How should we interpret these revelations, not these laws? How should we interpret these revelations? When I look at what Moses brought, when we look at what Jesus brought, and when we look at what Spiritism brought, how should we interpret these things? So, Moses, what do you mean? These are the laws of God, right? These are the laws of God. There's no discussion about it from that time of Moses. How should we interpret the revelations? Jesus, this is how to practice the law of God. You see, the fact that you tell me these are the laws of God might not mean much if I don't learn how to practice. And Jesus came here to show us clearly how to practice. He did not come to say, you do this, you do that. He said, he did it so we could see and learn from it. So, how should we interpret these revelations? Jesus will say it's how to practice the law or the laws of God. In Spiritism, how should we interpret the revelation? It's a step above. It's how to practice, yes, but also how to comprehend the laws of God. I can practice something because I'm being told to without making any sense to me, for example. This was the big clash at the time when the Jews or the Hebrews got under the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire, they brought in paganism, as we saw. Now, what is paganism? You have to do sacrifices. You have to do certain things. So they wanted the Jews to do the same thing. So they would go to the Jewish population and say, you got to do this sacrifice. You got to practice this particular type of sacrifice. And the Jews would say, what do you mean? It doesn't make any sense to me. Because for their, because of their culture, they did not comprehend. So they would revolt. These Romans, they want us to do this. And, I'm going to rebel because it makes no sense to me. Now, when you know why you should do it, that changes everything. That's a whole different story. Doing something because You understand why, makes more sense. And you do it gladly. You do it with your heart, your love. And here's another question, number 7. What would you call these laws? If you had to put a name to the laws that you guys brought, what name would you give it? So Moses, the law of justice. I brought the law of justice. Jesus, the law of love. And Spiritism, the law of justice, love, and charity, all the way up above. It's interesting because you see, Spiritism brings the idea that justice, love, and charity are one thing. They're not three things. It's one thing. It's a combo. You cannot separate. You cannot have love and charity only without justice, or justice and charity only without love. It doesn't work. So you see, this kind of answer from Spiritism, this revelation brought to us by Spiritism, widens our perception on life. And here's the last question, question number 8. Where are these laws written? I want to know what the law is. I want to read it. How can I, get acquainted? How can I be where is it? How do I get these laws? So where are they written? Moses, they are carved in stone. I did it myself. They're carved in stone. Jesus, in our hearts. There's a subtle thing here. When it says in our hearts, it could be understood, and it depends on interpretation of each person, depends on where you are in the spirit scale or your level of evolution. If you're higher, you're going to understand more. In our hearts, it could be a physical heart, the physical organ, meaning when you die, that's it. It stops beating. It no longer exists as an organ. Or it could be your heart, meaning it's a feeling, it's a sentiment. So Jesus says the laws are written in our hearts, meaning they go on after death. Where are these laws written? Spiritism, in our conscience. And that's how, because they are in our conscience, that's how they go from one life to another. Because the conscience is not material, it doesn't die, it doesn't disappear. It's always there. It's the spirit. It's part of the spirit. So when you see just this question here, again, I'm insisting on this because we're trying to see, why are 3 revelations? You can see here the difference in answers, the reach that each answer brings from the Spiritist point of view. It widens our perception tremendously. So I wanted to do a quick exercise if you can follow me here. So we're going to put this scheme of colors here. So what you see are those 3 guys that represent the revelations. And you have 4 colors. Black means something before Moses, before the first revelation. Red means after the first, before the second revelation. Yellow means after the second revelation, before the third. And green after the third. What this is here for is for us to analyze where we are. Let me explain to you. Let's make a statement here. Let's say that somebody comes to you and they say this: I want the death penalty for this particular person. Just kill him, death penalty. When you produce a statement like this, in which of the four colors does it fall? You see, if you're pro death penalty, you have not even understood the don't kill, or you're just simply ignoring it. So a statement like this, or people who make statements like this, they are living 4,000 years ago. They are in the black. They have not even understood Moses' law, the 10 Commandments, the first revelation. And there's not few of us that think this way. It's a great part of the population in the world, not referring to any specific place, where this happens all the time, unfortunately. Here's another statement. So somebody says to another person, you will pay me for what you have done. You will pay me for what you have done. So where's this statement falling? Black, red, yellow, or green? Well, let's try to eliminate this. Not black, because the equivalent of this statement in black would be, you did this to me, I'm going to kill you. So that wasn't the case. So there's an idea of preserving the life of the other person. So it's at least red. Now, can it be yellow? No, because you are wishing something that's not good. You were wishing directly or indirectly, you're wishing something evil for the other person. So you cannot be yellow. So this is a statement that puts us in the red before Jesus. So when we say something like this, you're going to pay for what you did to me, we are completely ignoring the existence of Jesus and all the messages and all the teachings that he came to bring us. Here's another statement. Somebody is on the highway, they just go flying by you, and they, put their horn, and you say, I wish you crash your car right there ahead of me. This is hypothetical, right? We never say that. Anyway, so I wish you crash your car. Where is this? It's not black because you're not saying, I wish you die. So you're not declaring death. So it's not black. So it's at least red. Can it be yellow? So would Jesus say to you, I want you to crash your car? Is that something Jesus would say? No. So this statement is also in the red. So you see, and how many times we do this? How many times we deserve things that, I wish this bad thing happens to you. That doesn't come from Jesus. Okay, here's another one. I am not able to forgive you. I'm not able to forgive. Interesting, because it's not black. It's not really red, because what is being said here is, I know I have to forgive you, but I'm having a hard time. I'm not able to. I'm having a hard time, but I know I have to forgive you. That's part of the statement in the underlines. So this is not black, this is not red, this is yellow. So when you say this, you already understood what Jesus came to say. So you're not able to, to forgive, but you know you have to. And if you know you have to, you heard Jesus. And here's one more statement. I'm trying to be a better person. This is what we all want to hear. And this is all we Spiritists are or should be trying to do. I'm trying to be a better person, meaning I know I have to be a better person. I'm just having a hard time. I'm working on it. So this is completely green. You see, a spiritist is not the person who is perfect. He's the person or those who are working their problems and situations, trying to be better people. So when you look at something like this, it becomes very interesting. If we are able, you have to be willing to do this. If you are able to monitor your attitudes, all of us, myself included, if we were able to monitor our attitudes and place ourselves in these colors, what's going to happen is we're going to create an inventory of beliefs, an inventory of actions that's going to clearly tells us, oh, I'm in the red, or I'm in the black, or I'm in the green. And that will be our starting points to be better. Because if I do this all the time, monitoring myself, and I find that I'm, for example, on the black, well, it's going to be hard work, and I better start right away. If I'm in the yellow, it's not so bad, but I still have to do some work. It tells us where we are in this thing. It's different for everyone. So this is a nice exercise. We start doing this exercise after the action. So we do something and we go back and say, I did this. Where do I fit here? That's fine. It's part of the exercise. However, it would be better if I do the exercise before taking the action. I am thinking of doing this. Where is it gonna fall? It's gonna fall in the red, so I'm not gonna do it. That would be the ideal situation. So these are the three revelations, and we try to show you how they relate to each other, how they came about, and how we can use that knowledge in our own favor. Thank you for now. We're going to stick around for questions, if any.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Luis. Thank you for amazing reflections that I hadn't thought quite that way, especially those interview questions. They're awesome. But all of us were here today watching you. I'm sure they're equally um, grateful for your reflections on the three revelations that you provided. But I want to say to everyone, please stay with us for the Q&A session that will start shortly after a few announcements. And the first announcement that I have is this new virtual course, Introduction to Mediumship, Unlocking the Mysteries of the Spirit World. This is a free virtual course for beginners, and the United States Spiritist Federation is thrilled to invite all individuals who are eager to explore the realm of spirit communication according to Spiritism. Check out the new course at learn.spiritist.us, or you can scan the QR code on the flyer. We have another amazing announcement, really excited for that. And you are all invited to attend the 18th US Spiritist Symposium on September 21st of this year in Boston, Massachusetts. The theme of this year's symposium is Life Through the Lens of Immortality. Please save the date. And if you're like me, go ahead and register and be ready to meet with all of us in Boston. Another announcement that we have is we are presenting the podcast like series, Psychology and Spirituality, A Bridge to a Better Life, based on the works by Joanna DeAngelis. There's a new episode every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and they are available on YouTube and Spotify. My next announcement is the Spiritist app, Be My Hope. It is available now on the App Store or Google Play. I want to tell you that this app offers uplifting content in a collection of videos, daily messages, and audio materials. Download it now. I've done it myself. And please note that on the screen, there's a QR code. If you want to help the U.S. Spiritist Federation produce more publications, promote Spiritism to everyone, scan the QR code on screen. We would love to have your donation. Let's start now, Louise, by addressing some of the questions from the audience. I do believe we have a few minutes of your time.
Yeah.
So, Louise, somebody sent this question. Louise, it is very interesting to hear what are the revelations and their timelines. What is it expected of us now? We're talking about, right, the second millennium. What has changed? What do we believe we should be concerned about? What are expectations?
Well, I think the first thing is to understand the difference. To
Uh-huh.
understand that what Spiritism means. It means a philosophy that's coming to explain things that were brought in the past, and not necessarily they were, you know, explained uh, to the level that we are able to comprehend today. These are
Mm-hmm.
things that happened 2,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, and of course we have the ability to grasp a lot more from, from these revelations today. So what is expected of us now is first to understand. Second, make sure we continuously study. Knowledge is everything, so we need to study. We need to, participate in lives like this and talks, and uh, follow speakers,
Uh-huh.
anything that will help us go more into these revelations, especially the third revelation. But understanding that the third revelation is way above the first, and also the second, is fundamental.
Yeah, there's something that you mentioned in today's live that was quite interesting, and from that perspective, that it's all in God's time, right? We are so eager to just get to it, to um and just fulfill all of our potentials in 2 days. And I'm just joking here, but there's this almost anxiety, fear that we're not doing enough for a lot of us. And when you put in perspective that the first revelation came at the right time, the second at the right time, and we had to wait what 1800 years to get to the third revelation.
Hmm.
And I think it's quite interesting. Everything is orchestrated to the point that it will fulfill what we need to have it with us, right?
Right? And it was brought to us for free.
Oh, of course. For those of us that are really interested, for example, in apps like Coursera, that you can get a college degree for free. Hey,
Yeah.
it came for free. You did not even have to create the app or have a mobile phone to do it. I love
Yeah.
it. So let's see if there's another question. So somebody said, I love the concept of a simulated interview with Moses. Me too. Jesus and Kardec on behalf of Spiritism. Why do you believe we need to go through those questions to really, and I'm going to say comprehend, not just understand, but comprehend, just to have a better understanding and be able to keep it inside, right? To address those because they become part of what we are.
Yeah. First of all, when you see those answers comparatively visually on the screen, that's why we did it this way, because it's
Uh-huh.
easier for people to grasp the idea. You can see how much society has evolved in the first
Correct.
place. Society as a whole, not necessarily you yourself.
Hmm.
But if we are able, if we were given those answers that Spiritism brings compared to those that Moses brought, it tells you right off the bat how much better the society is, how much more evolved morally
Hmm.
and intellectually uh, the society is. So that's important. As that comparison shows that, and that comparison also shows that the answer to most things is, on the when you look at the top answers from Kardec and on
Yeah.
behalf of Spiritism, you're gonna see, wow, I thought it was just this little thing, but it's a lot more. it
Yeah.
shows that we still have to grow because the answers are widening our perception. Spiritism
Yes.
does that through a series of questions and answers in the Spirit's book to begin with, and then from there, the entire codification and more work that comes after Kardec. But when you look at this comparison, you can feel that there's more. There's much more. I can't stay put in the black, you know.
Yes. Oh my goodness, no. I love the one that you said, that you present on the question on, how long, right? How long the laws will exist, and it goes from as long as we live, forever, and then for eternity. And I don't know if you know this, Luis, but I'm a student of Joanna de Angelis, right? And Joanna de Angelis speaks or writes a lot about this expansion of consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a one of the topic that really speaks to me specifically, and I love that growth of a concept from a very materialistic view to a
Yeah.
spiritual view, right? But then this much expanded. It lives in your conscience. So, and since we're eternal, right? A
Mm-hmm.
being, immortal beings in this eternity, it spans through the before and the after of our own existence today. So love it. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Let me see. I think we have time for one more question. Good. Where do you think most of us are? Are we not further in the continuum between black and red and yellow than just starting with a green? What are your thoughts?
Well, let's put it this way. Collectively, first,
Yes.
we are in a world of trials and expiations.
Yes.
So nobody comes to a world of trials and expiations because they're on the green. There's not such a thing.
Note to self, right? We're not
No,
in the green.
unless you
Yes.
come for a mission, that's a whole different story. But why are we here under trials and expiations? Because we have a hard time understanding Jesus. You know, we can maybe summarize the whole thing using one phrase that Gandhi used to say. He used to say, "I love the Christians, but I don't understand why they don't follow Christ."
Absolutely.
That kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
summarizes why we are in the red, most of us, because trials and expiations is for people on the black and on the red. On the black is more even worse for
Mhm.
primitive worlds. But a lot of us here on this planet of trials and expiations are still on the black. We are still in favor of killing, wars, death penalty, and abortion, which is a form of killing.
Yeah.
All of these things. So we are still very much in the beginning of this understanding. And
Absolutely.
there's another
Absolutely.
thing. You can be aware of Spiritism or even Jesus. Let's say you are aware of the message that Jesus brought, but you don't follow. And that's what
Mhm.
Gandhi was saying. So
Mhm.
being aware is not enough. Being aware means almost the same thing as not being aware if you don't practice.
Yeah. Yes.
So
I think it's quite interesting that Gandhi's remarks about why in the human condition is where it is, and if you think as Christian but you cannot be a Christian, then well, you're gonna be not a Christian for a long time before you get to
you
that point.
can call yourself a Christian if
Yeah,
you don't
well,
follow it.
not truthfully or authentically, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Louise, I think we are at time. We don't have any additional questions today. But I wanted to say thank you. Thank you, or all who are here today who have watched today's live, and those who have been following our weekly talks every Saturday. Please note that next Saturday, June 22nd at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, don't miss Sonia Doy. Sonia will be discussing calamities, and we'll be here for a treat to hear from her. But before we close, Louise, do you mind saying a prayer to all of us?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Uh, let's think about our great Master Jesus, the one, the great counselor, the one who came down to bring us the message from God. His message brings hope, brings liberation, empowerment, but it has to be understood and practiced. So, Jesus, we ask you to help us follow your teachings, help those in hospitals and prisons undergoing their trials and expiations, their difficulties. A lot of them rebel against it, that those people can be consoled uh, by your light. And the people who are still living in the dark ages, still thinking about killing, that those people can also receive your light, influxes of your greatness, so we can have a better world and we can all get better and follow our path towards perfection. Thank you, Jesus, for this once more opportunity to be here in your name. So be it.